Hello friends, and welcome to Flutter with ZT. In today's video, we're going to learn how to build a simple yet powerful to-do list app using Flutter. This app will help you keep track of your tasks in a clean and organized way. We'll be adding some really useful features, like separate sections to clearly show your completed and incomplete tasks, a button to clear all tasks at once, and options to edit or delete individual tasks. It's a great project for beginners to understand Flutter basics while building something practical. So, let's get started and bring this app to life. Let's break down what this code is doing in very simple words. This is the starting point of a Flutter app. Flutter is a tool that lets you build mobile apps. The very first line is saying, "Hey Flutter, I want to use your basic tools to build my app." Then we have something called the main function. This is like the engine starter of the app. When the app runs, it starts right here. Inside this main function, we call a command called run app, and we tell it to launch our app, which is called to-do app. Now let's talk about the to-do app part. This is the main screen setup of the app, and it's written as a class, which is just a fancy word for a box of instructions. This class extends something called a stateless widget. That just means this screen won't change on its own. It always looks the same unless we restart it. Inside it, there is a build function. Think of it like a recipe. This recipe tells Flutter how the app should look. The recipe here returns something called a material app, which is like the base layout for the app. We give the app a title, which is just to-do list app. Nothing too fancy, it's just the name. Then we have the theme. This theme is setting the overall look and colors of the app. It's saying, use teal as the main color, and add a splash of amber for some extra color highlights. It also changes how the text looks, making normal text a bit bigger and headlines bold and stylish. Finally, there's a line that says use material 3, which just means we are using the latest design style that looks more modern. At the end, we set the home of the app. This is the first screen the user will see when they open the app. It's pointing to something called to-do homepage, which we haven't shown here, but that's where all the to-do list features will live. And that's it. This code is like setting the stage, preparing the theme, and deciding what the first screen will be when someone opens the app. Now let's look at what happens when the main screen of the app, the to-do list screen, actually starts working. This part of the code begins with a class called to-do homepage, and it's a special type called a stateful widget. That just means this screen can change while the app is running. For example, when you add a task, cross it off, or delete it, this screen will update in real time to show those changes. Inside this widget, there's a connection made to something called _to-do home page state, which is where all the main logic and behavior of our app lives. In the _to-do home page state class, the real action begins. First, we create something called a text controller, which is like a tool that helps us read what the user types into the task input box. Then we make a list, just like a shopping list, to store all the tasks the user adds. Each task is saved as a small map, which is basically a bundle of information. Every task has two things: a title, which is the text of the task, and a completed status, which tells us whether the task is done or not. Next, there are three important functions. The first one is called _add task. When the user types something and clicks the add button, this function checks if the input box isn't empty. If there's something written there, it adds the task to the list and clears the input box so the user can type a new task. Then we have _toggle task. This function lets the user mark a task as done or not done by tapping on it, kind of like checking it off. Finally, we have _delete task, which removes a task from the list when the user decides they don't need it anymore. All three of these functions use something called setState. That's just a command that tells Flutter, "Hey, something has changed. Please update the screen so the user can see the latest version." This is what makes the to-do list dynamic. It updates live every time you add, complete, or delete a task. And that's how this part of the code brings your task list to life. Now let's understand how the edit task feature works in our to-do list app. This part of the code allows the user to change the text of a task they already added. The function is called _edit task, and it takes one input, the position or index of the task in the list. First, it creates a special tool called a text editing controller. This tool is already filled with the current text of the task, so when the user tries to edit, they can see the original text and make changes to it. Then comes something called Show Dialog. This is what makes a pop-up box appear on the screen. Inside this pop-up, we use an alert dialog, which is just a ready-made Flutter design that gives us a small window with a title, some content, and buttons. The title says, Edit Task, and below it there's a text box where the user can type the new version of the task. This text box uses the controller we made earlier, so the old text appears automatically. At the bottom of the dialog, we have two buttons. One says, Cancel, and when the user presses it, the pop-up simply closes and nothing changes. The second button says, Save. If the user writes something and presses Save, the app checks to make sure the text box is not empty. If it's not, it updates the task in the list with the new text using setState, which tells Flutter to refresh the screen with the updated task. After saving, the pop-up closes automatically. So in simple words, this whole part of the code allows users to open a small window, change the task text, and update it, making the app more flexible and user-friendly. This part of the code adds a Clear All Tasks feature to the to-do list app. The function is called _clear tasks, and its job is to remove all the tasks from the list at once. Inside the function, we use something called setState, which is a command that tells Flutter, we're changing something, so please update the screen. Then, we simply call _tasks.clear, which empties the entire list of tasks. So, when the user taps a Clear All button, this function runs and deletes everything they had written in the list, giving them a clean, empty slate to start fresh. It's a quick and easy way to wipe out all tasks with just one tap. This part of the code is responsible for building and displaying the main screen of the to-do list app, what the user actually sees. It starts with the build function, which is like setting up the layout or the design of the screen. Inside it, two special lists are created. One is called Incomplete Tasks, which collects only those tasks that are not yet completed. The other one is called Completed Tasks, and it collects only the tasks that are marked as done. So, the app separates finished tasks from the ones that are still pending. Next, we return something called a scaffold, which is like the basic frame or structure for a Flutter app screen. Think of it as the skeleton that holds everything together. At the top, there's an app bar, which is the title bar you see at the top of the app. This bar shows the title, to-do list, and uses the primary color of the app theme as the background. The text and icons on it are white to make them easy to see. There's also an icon button on the right. It shows a delete icon and is used to clear all the tasks when tapped. That button is linked to the _clear tasks function we explained earlier. So this part of the code sets up the header of the screen and prepares to show the tasks based on whether they are completed or not. This part of the code is responsible for showing the area where the user can type in a new task and add it to the list. It's placed inside the body of the screen layout, which means this is the main content area below the top bar. The entire content is wrapped inside something called padding, which just adds some space around everything to make it look clean and not squished against the edges. Then, we use a column, which simply means we are stacking items vertically, one below the other. The first section inside this column is the input area, where the user can type a new task and add it. This is built using a row, which means we place things side by side, horizontally. On the left, there's a box called Text Field. This is where the user types the task they want to add. It uses a controller called _controller to keep track of what the user is typing. The text box has a label saying, Enter a task, and a nice border with rounded corners to make it look smooth and user-friendly. It also has a light gray background to make it easy on the eyes. When the user presses Enter after typing, the app will automatically call the _add_task function to add it to the list. Next to the text box, there's a small space to separate it from the button. Then we see an elevated button with a plus icon and the label Add. This button does the same thing. When the user taps it, the _add_task function runs and adds the new task to the list. The button is styled to look nice and clickable, with padding and rounded corners. So overall, this part of the code builds a clean and simple input section where users can type and submit new tasks with just one tap or key press. This part of the code shows the task lists on the screen, both incomplete and completed tasks. First, we add a little vertical space using sized box to keep things nicely spaced out. Then we display a heading called Incomplete Tasks. This is just a text label to tell the user what section they are looking at. It uses a slightly bigger and bold font, and the color comes from the app's main theme, so it looks consistent and nice. After that, we add more spacing, and then we show the actual list of incomplete tasks. To do this, we use something called expanded, which means this section will take up all the space it needs on the screen. Inside it, we check if there are any incomplete tasks. If the list is empty, we simply show a message in the center that says, "No incomplete tasks." But if there are tasks, we use a tool called listview.builder. This is a smart way to display a list of items, one below the other. For every task in the list, we call a custom function called _build task tile, which will display each task with all its options, like checking it off, editing, or deleting. Then we move on to the next section, which is for completed tasks. Just like before, we show a heading with styled text and some spacing. Again, we use expanded to fill up the remaining space and check if the completed tasks list is empty. If there are no completed tasks, a message shows up saying, "No completed tasks." If there are, we again use listview.builder to go through each task and show it using the same _build task tile function. So in simple words, this part of the code shows two neatly separated sections. One for tasks you still need to do, and another for tasks you've already finished, making it easy for the user to keep track of their progress. This part of the code defines how each individual task will look on the screen. It's written in a function called _build task tile, and it takes two things: the task itself and its position in the list. Think of this function like a reusable layout. It builds one task tile at a time, showing the task in a nice, clean card format. Each task is wrapped inside a card, which adds a slight shadow, some spacing, and smooth rounded corners to make it look modern and neat. Inside the card, we use something called a list tile, which helps arrange everything in a row: a checkbox on the left, the task title in the center, and some action buttons on the right. The checkbox lets the user mark a task as done or not done. It shows a tick mark when the task is completed. When the user taps it, the _toggle task function runs, which updates the task status. The checkbox also uses the app's main color to stay consistent with the overall design. Next, we show the task title, which is just the text of the task. If the task is marked as completed, we apply a line through the text and turn it gray, so the user can easily see it's done. If it's not completed, the text looks normal in the default color. Finally, on the right side, there are two icon buttons. One is for editing the task. It shows a blue pencil icon, and when pressed, it runs the _edit task function, allowing the user to change the task's text. The other is for deleting the task. It shows a red trash can icon, and when tapped, it runs the _delete task function, removing the task from the list. So in simple words, this code decides how each task looks, and it gives the user the tools to complete, edit, or delete that task, all in a neat little card. Here you go, now your to-do app is ready to run. Now to run the code using debugging option on the top of screen. I will be running it on Edge. So, let's go and run our app. And that's it for today's video. I hope you found it helpful and learned something valuable about building apps with Flutter. If you'd like to explore the complete code, you can find the link in the description below. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button so you never miss out on future Flutter tutorials. I'll catch you in the next video. Until then, take care and goodbye.